Alright, this is going to be a review of the MM720, and I am just going to show off the RGB, then I'm going to unplug it, and then I'm going to get into the actual review. But just to start off, this mouse comes in at about $35 you can get on Amazon right now, or you can get it $50 retail. And, I mean, that is a very fair price. That is, I would consider definitely a budget mouse, the $35, obviously. But yeah, so I'm going to unplug the RGB, and now we'll get into the review. So, 3389 sensor. LK optical switches. So if you don't know what LK is, it is basically the manufacturer of the Razer opticals. So these use, I guess, the equivalent of V2 opticals, but they don't feel like V2 opticals. They're a little bit lighter, I think, in my opinion. They're kind of like V1.5 opticals, and they're okay. But we'll get into that in a second. 50 grams, and that is really light. And I was a little bit concerned because Cooler Master mice are never good quality. Like they just always have QC issues. But I was happy to please. This one does not have any QC issues. It is built actually like a tank. There is a little bit of creaking when you press on the bottom, but it's nothing too serious at all. So it comes in matte and glossy. I obviously have matte black here. You can also get it in white. As I said, 3389. LK optical switches, and we're just going to get into a sound test now. Right and left click. Side buttons. Scroll wheel. Alright, so the buttons on this mouse are extremely weird. The right and left click are just dull. They really just feel like they don't feel as good as V2 opticals. I don't know if it's the shell of this mouse. They just don't. There is quite a bit of pre-travel, and there's definitely noticeable post-travel. Like, there's just a ton of it, but I don't think it really impacts the feel at all, really. They just feel dull, but I guess if you don't prioritize click feel, this could be solid for you. They're nothing, not make or break, really. They're solid. Now, the side buttons, this is something, they remind me a lot of the MM710 or 11 side buttons. They're in a really stupid, I don't know if you can see this. They kind of, you can probably see it there. They have this weird shape to them, and they're glossy, and they just don't feel good. They have a ton of post travel. Like, when I mean a ton, like, look at that. But the feel is actually not bad if you're not clicking in to the post travel. It's really hard to explain. But the post travel does ruin it a little bit. If these had no post travel, these would be really, really, really solid side buttons. But unfortunately, there is just a ton of post travel. And the scroll wheel. So the scroll wheel is kind of grayish, and it's loose. It's done on purpose. It's just a very, when you're spinning it like this, it almost feels like a free scrolling scroll wheel. It's really not tactile at all. It has like, they're defined steps slowly scrolling, but they're really not that defined when you're scrolling. I'm not too big of a fan of the scroll wheel. The click is just average too. It's I would say on the heavier side, or maybe it's just to the middle. But I mean, the buttons are just really average. They don't stand out. Besides optical, they do feel really nice in game, but you're not buying the mouse for the clicks. You're buying it for the shape. So this is an ergo mouse. It's considered. It's obviously looks a little bit different than every other ergo mouse you've seen probably. It is 105 millimeters long. Yes, that is tiny. This is a tiny, tiny mouse, 50 grams, mind you, 105 millimeters long. I'm pretty sure it's like 71 millimeters wide. I could not find the exact dimensions. People were a little bit all over the place. But it is just obviously very wide because you have this thumb rest here. But it's weird. It's just a really weird mouse. And it's about 38 millimeters high. Now, what you're going to get with this grip style is you're going to get, in my opinion, a really nice fingertip experience. This is probably one of my favorite fingertip mice. It was just the perfect length, and the hump was perfectly positioned. And you also get a pretty nice claw experience. And I think because of this little side finger holder thing, you get an easier grip on claw grip if you have a little bit of bigger hands. But this is a tiny mouse, like just in general. Nobody's palming this thing. You're just not going to. I have tiny hands. I have about 17.5, 17.6 millimeter hands, centimeters. Sorry, look at that. My hand devours this thing. My hand has never like devoured a mouse this much. So you're not going to be palming this thing. Fingertip, I really enjoyed fingertip with this mouse. It was probably my favorite grip with it. And I don't normally fingertip, so that was definitely a good experience. It is a really unique shape, and it's only going to be for a very small amount of people, but it is a really, really nice shape. And as I said, no creaking, but there is one thing I would like to mention. The sensor feels weird. I don't know what Cooler Master does to their sensors. It's just a normal 3389 sensor, but it feels off compared to other 3389s I've used, and I've heard this from a bunch of other people with Cooler Master mice. It's weird. I noticed it on my MM711 and 10. I had two. I don't know if they put like something on the sensor, like some setting. I turned all the settings off in the software and everything, and it just feels really weird. It feels like there's some type of acceleration going on, but it might just be in my head. No creaking, as I said, 50 grams. And the cable is not too bad, honestly. I don't think you really need to change it. It's a solid cable. It's like a B tier cable. You would definitely benefit from changing it, but I mean, it's a pretty solid cable. It wouldn't be my priority. Now, I don't like the feet. There's one huge glide and one small one. They just don't, they're not smooth. And they just don't feel good. A little bit scratchy, not smooth. Yeah, I would change them. They just don't feel good in my opinion. So that's that. Now the coating is just a matte coating. And the clicks, I can't tell if it's the same coating just because there's so many holes in this mouse. It's a really nice coating. It's just a pure matte coating. I've heard the glossy coating is absolutely terrible, and it does pick up a pretty decent amount of fingerprints. I don't know if you can see this just because it's black, and I have a black mouse pad here, and it is late at night. But it does pick up quite a few fingerprints. And I mean, there's not really much to say about this mouse. It's a unique shape for probably going to be a very, very, very small amount of people, but it is a really, really nice mouse. It just is. 50 grams, $35 or $50. I think it's honestly worth the $50 to begin with. It's a solid mouse, and I haven't heard many QC issues about it. So that's gonna be the end of this video. It is just an overall solid mouse. I would put this like in the B tier. It's a really, really solid stock mouse. But that's going to end this video. Like and sub if you're new. Check out my other reviews and look in the description for the link to the mouse and my Addis Inc. affiliate link. Peace.